start getting into game 4s and 5s, you start to lose track as a caster. You might have a call out and then, you know, you look for a couple of seconds and say, oh, it's Fearless away.
4 games now going into Fearless draft once again. That means 15 champions from both sides are gone for a total of 30 eliminated from the potential pool, and we're continuing to see a lot of bans put onto the Varus and the Orianna. Nocturne once again taken away from JDG. It has not been available to JunJia this entire series. Gnar removed from the pool, as well as Aurora. So now when you're looking at mid lane champions, what comes to mind here?
I know a lot of the first pick ones specifically are no longer up on the board. So I like this. JDG instead gonna be pivoting toward the bot lane to set up for Gala Vampire to get the, I would assume, Ashe Seraphine. They're gonna lock Seraphine down first. BLG, though, can respond by denying the Ashe and maybe going for something like an early Braum pick if they choose. But given that the Seraphine is already locked down, Raafaa, they don't automatically need to go for a support champion because, I mean, it's already been locked here for JDG. So there's no threat of losing a good pairing.
I mean, for them, they deny the Ashe Seraphine from being a pair. So now, when you think of next best pairings for Ashe, Lulu's already gone, Emilio's gone.
Braum?
But I remember, Ashe Braum would be the next best option, and it's a great way to answer into Seraphine because of the Encore being blocked by the Unbreakable, and Xun is just going to look for an instant Skarner lock-in. So this opens up the frontline duty and responsibility from Bin and potentially on, if it's not Braum for him.
All right, but this also does mean that JDG don't have to fear something like the Mel, because BLG are going to be forced between potentially locking that down for Knight and then getting the Ashe Braum over to BLG. So going to kind of force them to choose on 3 what they really want to prioritize. And yeah, Olaf lock-in here for JDG does have flex potential, and we have seen some crazy 3-star Michelin star chef cooks come through by Tabe in the top lane before. Olaf would not be in that realm. It is still a good champion top, but doesn't see a matchup quite yet. So is undecided on where it will end up, but we will see JDG round out their bot lane with the Jhin instead. So a lot of CC, a lot of lockdown as well. I would imagine from here, JDG really just want to get a strong top side that can be facilitated by the Jhin Seraphine.
Anytime you have a Jace locked in, I'm always thinking about how you can supplement that poke with either hard engage to commit after the poke has been dealt, which you have the Ashe Arrow and the Skarner to be able to look for that as soon as this Jace chunks out critical members low enough. But for JDG, like the pairing of the Jhin with this Olaf, because already, whether it's going to go into JunJia's hands or into Xiaoxu's hands, they want to be able to just brute force their way into the backline. And if all the attention and the disruption is now put into trying and peel this Olaf away, no one is going to be focusing the Jhin, and that's a perfect time for Gala to set up that Sniper's Crow Nest in the screen away. Maokai, however, banned, trying to pinpoint whether this was going to be Xiaoxu's Olaf, and then denying that Maokai away from JunJia this late into the series.
So we do see on the other side, though, JDG opting to go for LeBlanc bans. I wonder if they're going to ban something like the Akali, to take away a lot of these aggressive assassin picks from Knight. This could be opening up maybe a Yone angle to come through from HongQ if you wanted to get a little bit spicy with it. It's been some time since I think we've seen HongQ on that pick, but it is a vintage, famous character that he has pulled out some crazy performances on in the past. BLG, though, instead, probably just going to pick up the Braum here, I think. I don't think they're in a big rush to...
Nidalee support? Or Skarner support? It could be Skarner support.
Whoa!
Oh my goodness! We have Nidalee. We have Nidalee for BLG in Game 4. I have to imagine that it should be something like Nidalee jungle and Skarner support. I know that there is, I think, a Kyle game on the Skarner support recently, or
There it is.
It's been seeing some ways, but as you called out, Sejuani and Yone, that links up. So this will at least give strong setup for Sejuani in both solo lanes for the Olaf and the Yone to proc or permafrost. BLG now trying to decide what their final champion is going to be. And we didn't even discuss the potential of a Jace flex to mid lane if this happens to be Zehen for top.
It could be a Zehen for Bin, and it's gonna be locked in here, Mark. So both teams pulling out a bunch of stops here in game number 4. But I do, really quickly, before we end going into the game and get the Gyos out of the way, want to explain the Skarner support just a little bit, because it looks like that is going to be what is pulled out for on. Skarner does a deceptively high amount of damage early in the game. When you've got the poison or the bleed or whatever word you want to use to call
passive,
it.
yeah.
The passive, yeah, we'll just go with that. It really provides a lot of DPS early. So I think Viper and On can easily play up far in this lane, especially against Gala, who on this Jhin is immobile. So if he gets caught by an Ishtal's impact, he might be as good as dead. So I think that the kill pressure of this bot lane provides a lot of openings for the rest of BLG to play up around that side of the map. But on the other end, it's a strong top side for JDG. We've seen this strategy before, and it has been successful in the past, and now it's going to need to be the thing that saves them from elimination in the playoffs here, Mark.
JDG have their backs against the wall, and they need to push at least for 2 game wins to advance themselves in the lower bracket. BLG just 1 game win away, and we have a special treat in Xun pulling out his Nidalee.
Yup. World famous.
This guy, one of the few LPL junglers that I trust with my life in seeing an exquisite Nidalee performance. It's time for game 4 between BLG and JDG Gaming.
A lot of poke, a lot of early game aggression possible here from kind of that trifecta of Xun, Knight, and Viper early on in this game. We'll have to see what Xun gets up to in these early pathings. One of the big advantages, Mark, and I'm sure you as the Nidalee guy on the cast can definitely back me up on this. The biggest commodities of Nidalee is how flexible you can be in the pathing. You can go through the Dragon Pit. You can go cross-map. You can look for invades against a champion like Sejuani, who is not known to be strong very early on. You can bully JunJia around, and I feel like Xun in the past has been so good at being able to go on champions like the Nidalee, like the Kindred, capable of cross-mapping and being aggressive the moment they hit the rift, and just running with that pressure the whole way through.
Yeah. Xun definitely up to date on Nidalee clears, starting Raptors with the level 1E. On Flash Install
there
impact,
it is.
proccing the Ignite. Vampire already under fire, forced to pop the Summoner Heal as well as the Flash. It is a trade of Summoner spells between both supports, but On already showing the devastating power of the Skarner support with the Hail of Blades.
That's what we talked about. Ishtal's impact providing so much damage and so much lockdown in the early phases of this matchup. Hawkshot going to also spot out where JunJia is on the pathing, but we see that Xun doesn't really have too much of a concern looking for any of those invades so far, but it's a lot of skirmishing happening between the lanes. We saw some trades of HP go down in mid. Obviously, that Flash Ishtal's impact from On in bot. And already, we can see the Skarner roaming around Summoner's Rift to try and look for some pressure onto HongQ's Yone.
When I think of classic Nidalee support combinations to set up that spear, Skarner does not spring to mind. But you find that Ishtal's impact, that stun lasts long enough for a spear to connect. And fun fact, Quax, this is Xun's first Nidalee in over a year. Last time he played it was March 23rd of last year when he was on the JDG Gaming roster.
That's absolutely crazy, and this is a pick that people know him for. I mean, Shun's Nidalee, Shun's Kindred, these aggressive, high-octane junglers are what he made his name on so many years ago, and what he has kept his reputation on. Yup. And so now it is going to be the difference maker between BLG being taken to Game 5 or being able to end the series in 4 here against JDG. Got a double crab as well, so already off to a really good early start.
Knight getting super low on the trades there. Meanwhile, On finds another stun onto Vampire, but Viper cannot continue the trade because JunJia bails out the bot lane. First blood to JDG Gaming.
It may have been double crab over to the Nidalee mark, but the thing is with Sejuani, they don't need resources in order to thrive. JunJia shows up, collects a kill for the Sejuani, and JDG find themselves on the board with first blood. I think the Skarner showing itself as more of a double-edged sword because you get that lockdown, you get that commitment, you get that CC, but when you're in the fight, you might not exit out of it.
And now On is ready to make impact on the other side of the map. That forces the ghost out of Xiaoxu. Does he want to take this fight with Bin right at his side? The flash from Xiaoxu at least guarantees a trade, but now Bin has control of the wave and a solo kill to his name.
Yeah, he's going in, he's not coming out. Like we just said, On gets taken down for the second time this game. It is a trade, and Bin will definitely take that every day of the week. But still, the Skarner support not necessarily paying as much dividends, I think, as BLG were hoping in these early minutes of the game. Viper going to be feeling the pain of that as well as JDG. It's a ton of free gold given over to Gala. They're going to crash this wave, even pick up a plate for the Jhin early on.
Meanwhile, On the Scorpion returns back to bot lane, doing his best to provide some pressure and at least some relief to Viper's Ashe, who is still maintaining somewhat of a CS advantage, but he is low in the health department, so it's going to make things harder for him to collect minions crashed in by Gala and Vampire. First dragon has spawned 30 seconds ago. Shun constantly hovering in between both the top and the bottom sides of the map. Solid camp advantage, but they still can fight for this second respawn crab that would guarantee either of these junglers level 6.
And for JunJia, it's way more important. You get access to that glacial prison and just means so much more. Shun doesn't really need to get level 6. I mean, he already has his ultimate at level 1, so not too consequential.
Now,
just kind of feels like a deny.
Hang on.
All right.
Execute damage
that is
goes
true.
up. Cougar damage on all 3 of her abilities goes up. Yeah, it's not like game-changing CC, but your lethalness goes up a ton. Now Shun, but the Sejuani barely shows.
They don't see him. All right, well now they're gonna spot him out.
Shun almost getting pounced on here. He just jumps away from the glacial prison. A little too slow from JunJia there. And HongQ not able to look for a follow-up with the Fate Sealed. On swerves on in. Shun's got to be careful. Flashes away from the deadly flourish. A HongQ Fate Sealed forces Knight's own flash. But no member of the BLG squad falls to the hands of JDG.
All right, it's a bunch of jockeying for control around this bot side river, but like you said, no one goes down. Viper is going to get some solo gold over to himself as this Ashe. And BLG with Prio are just going to keep forcing the issue.
HongQ forced a flash from the Ishtal impact, but Shun goes
Shun
a
is
little
found.
too deep. The CC, great from JDG, punishes the cat, and they look for On next.
All right, it's a 2-for-1. HongQ crucially going to be denied some minions under his own turret, but did get the kill. So going to, at the very least, give something over to the Yone when all is said and done. But Knight is going to be able to get another plate on this turret. So gold given over to the Jace as well. Both mid laners get something for their pockets and something for their wallets in that play mark. And the dragon has been up for a while. Grubs are about to spawn in 10 seconds. This has been a recurring pattern over the course of this series where neither team is really chomping at the bit to go for these neutrals, stalling out, waiting for the game to kind of run its course and treating the objectives more like a consolation prize or something that is like a convenience almost, rather than a legitimate win con. The win con of Dragon has been really apparent, but it doesn't really come through until much later in the game because the first Dragon is taken so late.
And the early game control has been far more important, especially to a team like JDG, where we saw earlier in the series how much being able to have that bot priority guaranteed, have resources being accelerated into Gala's pockets, gives them a better footing to fight with. Now, Shun on the Nidalee, able to look for the grubs and should not be contested here as JunJia's already pathing towards the bot side of the map. All 3 grubs going to go their way. This is going to help a lot with champions like this Zehen as well as the Jace, who are going to be trying to play to that signature side laning that BLG has with both of their solo lanes here and gives them more pressure on these turrets. Now, one thing I want to point out here, Quax, it's a Proto Belt rush from Nidalee for Shun. We saw Lichbane, definitely a very strong item, but this is a heavy melee bruiser stacking topside from JDG with a tank from Sejuani. If you are going in melee range with Lichbane, you are not healthy enough nor durable enough with no HP in that item build path to survive the turnaround. So Proto Belt is going to give you a lot more ability haste. It's going to give you more HP and a lot more survivability with that Rocket Belt active. I would not be surprised if Shun then goes for Liandry's second and not a Lichbane, because he's just trying to be as durable as possible and trying to play to chunk the health bars of JDG.
It really feels like Shun is not going to be playing to engage the fights at all as this Nidalee. I think when we look at the main damage of BLG, it comes through the poke, the spears, the shock blasts from Knight, all of the poke from Viper as well. They have a pretty big range advantage over most of JDG, and that has got to be the thing that they look to leverage as much as possible. I do agree with you that the extra dash and the health from the Rocket Belt really is what Shun is looking for, just to mitigate the pick potential of this JDG top side. But playing from a distance is what BLG want to do, and it is the main way they should be playing this early to mid game. As now Bin is looking for the 1v1, but Shun is in the area too.
Not a true 1v1. Xiaoxu smirks at the attempt gank from Shun. Only has to trade his Ragnarok and his Ghost, so overall summoner advantage now for Bin with the flash and the TP at the ready. Next objective not coming up for another 4 minutes on the Rift Herald, 3.5 for the second dragon of the game. So I want to take this time, Quax, and remind people that we are potentially witnessing a very early exit from either JDG or BLG. And for the 2 players, Knight from BLG, hang on, Ash Arrow looking for HongQ in the mid lane. Okay, sidesteps it with the Soul Unbound. This would be either Knight or JunJia's worst playoffs finish since 2021 for Knight and 2020 for JunJia here.
It would be. So, you know, 6 and 5 years, respectfully, of dominance going to be put to a halt in this series for whoever ends up losing it for Knight and JunJia. For JunJia, I feel like it has been so many wins. We talked about this in split number 1, but I mean, this was a guy who had won, what, like 7 straight titles or something like that, and got put to a stop last time around by the fact that BLG won that grand finals. And now BLG have the potential to break his streak entirely of high placements by putting an end to JDG right here and right now.
Yeah,
but
the caveat is that JunJia having that streak over in the LCP and before coming back over to LPL after his stint over on EDG in 2021. For Knight, I think even though BLG are up in the series, JDG do have the structure and the bones for a comp that could try and force these picks with really solid engaged tools between Sejuani ulti, Fate Sealed from the Yone, Encore from the Seraphine. But so far, BLG have the steady makings of a strong gold lead. Another arrow from downtown from Viper fishing for
hit.
HongQ, but good sidestep. On tries to look for the quick punish with the initial impact, but he flashes away. On
Vampire!
multiple members, the impale for the re-engage. Shun in the thick of the fight, but the flash from JunJia secures the killing blow onto Knight's Jace, and now Shun has to retreat. Gala coming up the rear on the bot side river will not be able to assist in locking down the cat, but JDG continue stifling the gold advantage from BLG.
Good reactive gameplay there from JDG. Enchanted Crystal Arrow gets thrown out. HongQ immediately unbinds his soul and dodges out on that. And then the flash ultimate there from Vampire to react to the impale. JDG, it's only one kill, but they turn the attempt there around on BLG, and it's more gold into their pockets when all is said and done. So I want to get another replay to this. HongQ, pixel perfect reaction there as the Yone. And we can see Impale comes through, but HongQ is basically untouched at this point. JunJia is tanky enough to where he can take all of that damage. He does just that, gets a second of the game. We don't necessarily highlight the gold being onto the Sejuani. Sejuani, not one of the win conditions that we're looking at as JDG to carry this game. But if he is tankier, it just means that you have someone to deal against the poke that BLG will be putting onto you.
And you're starting to see some of the consequences of going for a more durable build for this Nidalee. Rocket Belt, a lot more survivability, but man, your all-in burst is much weaker.
Yep. It is, and I think BLG now are kind of forced to give away pressure on this bot side river. You can see that they're jockeying for control over the mid lane, but both top laners are actually maneuvering down. You can see that Bin is hovering around that river. HongQ has to be in.
Oh!
Ooh.
The install impact pushes HongQ, and the Fate Seal can't get past the Scorpion. BLG find the counterpunch and finally put HongQ Yones down.
Insane positioning there from On. Blocks the ultimate from allowing the Yone to get away. Now Gala's in trouble. Fails the flash!
That's a squishy ADC. It doesn't matter if it's a Rocket Belt or a Lich Bane. That Nidalee will still eat that marksman alive. Shun finds his first kill on his Nidalee.
And JDG, they've had the whole game turned around on them. They had control over the bot side river, but a pick onto HongQ, followed by a pick onto Gala, and a failed flash from the Jhin. Suddenly Shun is on the dragon, and the stacking of the Drakes is denied for JDG Gaming.
This will help BLG be bought some more time so that they are not forced into any negative fights with very bad setup into future circumstances. Going forward now, though, this is an infernal map, this game, and oh boy, for a composition like BLG that has damage in nearly every single role, that is going to aid them a lot if they can get that stacking going. There's a lot of vision around this Rift Herald River. Shun already has the objective at 5,000 HP. JunJia has Glacial Prison available, but Shun is very slippery, and Viper already forcing JunJia away, forced to use the Arctic Assault just to escape, and Viper able to sidestep both the Deadly Flourish as well as the double beat drop.
And I like this play coming out from BLG. Knight commits his teleport to guarantee the Herald is given over to BLG, and JDG are forced to give that away. And then Bin teleports to the bot side so that HongQ can't get any resources. A nice little swip swap there from the solo laners to maximize their gains and minimize their losses around the map. So some of that BLG macro coming through here, Mark, and it is going to pay dividends as now we can see first item breakpoints are starting to be hit for some of these members. Bin is getting closer to that second item, actually, as we see the Trinity Force complete. Has the healing cut as well. Zahen, a deceptively good champion at being able to apply multiple stacks of Grievous Wounds onto multiple members.
Yeah. It's going to be very essential as there's a lot of deceptive sustain coming out from this team. Still 3 minutes away from the next dragon as Shun secured the second one of the game. Baron spawning up in 2. HongQ being aided by JunJia on the side lane. The blue sweeper does not find this Sejuani. Knight could be in trouble. Fate sealed on top of the Glacial Prison. The Primal Surge, not enough healing to save his mid laner. Great pick by JunJia, and even greater to sneak around the Vision Cone.
All right, HongQ gets more gold. Now he is battling Shun in this bot side river to try and crash this wave. Meanwhile, in mid, Viper is getting solo gold as this Ashe. So BLG winning out in other facets around the map here. JDG getting a kill for their efforts, but when all is said and done, not really able to translate it into anything that equates to tying up what Viper managed to get. It's not just gold into the Ashe, but this is going to be so crucial in giving BLG more control around these dragons for the future.
It's a nice pick onto the Jace, but Knight still somewhat ahead in gold thanks to the repeated attacks from BLG onto HongQ's Yone. Curious to see how JDG continue playing the map now, though, because Bin has once again amassed himself a very sizable advantage into Xiaoxu. I don't think we've really seen a game where Xiaoxu has had a clear advantage over Bin in this series. Ashe Arrow connects, JunJia absorbs it, Encore at least breaks open the fight, but the well-timed impale buffering through the ultimate intercepts HongQ on the engage, makes the trade a 1-for-1, but On will gladly give his life for that of the Yone.
All right, Protoplasm keeps JunJia alive. He does have to expend the flash, but it is a 1-for-1 when all is said and done, like you said, but Tower crucially goes over to BLG as well. Gala is stepping up!
Oh no! Gala tries to flash away, but still falls to the power of Knight's Jace as he slams down the hammer.
And a full distance max range Nidalee Spear also in the back of the Jhin as well for good measure. As we do get a replay on this bot side, JunJia tanks up the Ashe Arrow, tanks up the Spear, is in the middle of all of the commotion and poke that we talked about being a big highlight of BLG's comp, but he's the one that manages to survive. It's HongQ that goes down, and this Yone mark is just being put down so relentlessly by BLG. JDG, they're trying their best to give advantages over to their mid laner, but it feels like BLG are so good at being able to put a wrench in that plan.
Oh boy, Vampire now in a world of trouble, flashes over the wall, but it's the Ashe Arrow that is the executing blow. Not even needed for the stun, just the lethal amount of necessary damage to finish him off. BLG are in position to rotate on over to a spawning dragon.
Should be able to give them the second Drake of the game, and you can see Bin teleporting to the bot side. Denies more gold over to HongQ on this Yone, just looking to try and split push in a lane, get some solo gold on this pick, but he's constantly forced to join up for these team fights where he frankly isn't strong enough, Mark. BLG are finding these timers, and they force him to get involved.
This constant proactivity is the closest we can recall BLG at their best. Where was that Glacial Prison going? It doesn't matter. They still get the kill now, but Xiaoxu is going to be completely separated from the rest of his team as Han picks up a freebie for himself. Impale starts out the dive, and Shun lands a crucial spear onto HongQ, continuing the chase. Mikhail's Crucible at least gets Shun out alive for now. A Rift Herald has spawned, and On is going to take it for a potential joyride, looking to knock up multiple members here. They're trying to dodge it. They're trying to weave around it, but they knock up a flashless Vampire on the Seraphine. Arrow goes wide, but this spear might not connect as Gala manages to survive by the skin of his teeth. JunJia as well, but BLG returning back to their usual antics, constantly skirmishing, constantly forcing fights, and now they can look for this Baron.
What is possessing On in this mid game, Mark? It was looking like a few rough plays from the Skarner early on, not panning out the way he was hoping, but ever since then, the setup from this pick to allow the poke from Knight, from Shun to land has been so insane. He set him up with the Rift Herald knockup, for God's sake. That is absolutely insane. Baron acquired for BLG. And now we're going to get a replay of how this fight started. Knight gets engaged onto, and I think responded to this about as good as he could. He flashes over, trying to create some distance, does basically get Olaf to 1 HP. He tries to heal up on the minions, but it's no use. He's going to get taken down. And then right here, I want to pay attention to Shun. So, drags him to a spear. How does that land onto the Yone? It went through the Sejuani mark.
I have no idea, Quax. I don't think I've seen a spear lollipop like that ever before in my life, but
knock up,
boom,
boom, right there. Crazy cinema game coming out here on the Skarner support of all things, plus the Nidalee jungle. A vintage Shun game is exactly what we needed. We didn't know we needed it, but the fact that it's here now,
I've been missing it.
I have been missing it too, my friend.
Last time he played it, more than a year ago, in Split 2 placements during the 2025 season when he was on JDG. And it has been dormant. It has been in the back of his pocket for many, many months. And I am definitely happy to see that even though I would have understood a Liandry's Torment's second rush, he goes for the Lich Bane. He has even more burst damage now at his side. He's going for the Seekers into the Zonias for that clutch playmaking and durability to be able to immune to any damage coming through when he goes into stasis. JunJia looking for a turnaround flash. Engage.
They found Viper.
Viper in the backline. And Xiaoxu TP's on in. Picks up a freebie. And JDG are guaranteed a numbers advantage for the next 40 seconds.
Good punish there from JDG. Viper had no flash, no ghost. There was no way for the Ashe to get out of there. BLG abandoned their AD carry to save the rest of their skin. They've still got Baron for another 30 seconds here, and they will continue to keep pressure up on this top side. Maybe looking for JunJia.
Gotta be careful here. Deadly Flourish doesn't connect the root onto anyone. Curtain Call trying to slow down their exit. Not gonna get too far, but at least guarantees JDG secures the red buff for themselves.
I thought Shun got the red buff with the spear. That
it looked like it, but
it did. It did. But on top of the added bonuses with the Lich Bane, I do want to highlight, we saw this from Monkey. It made the difference. Literally, in their series against BLG, Monkey had Lich Bane, and with the back door, the extra damage that you get onto structures with that item
it's so strong, man,
allowed them to win the game. So on top of the poke, on top of the damage, and all of the things that you talked about, Mark, it gives extra siege power over to BLG. And with a comp that is already heavy on the poke and very good with their sieging, it just makes a difficult situation for JDG that much worse. Dragon up at about 20 seconds, and this could be a difficult situation for JDG Gaming. Maybe the last situation they find themselves in of the second split here in 2026 if they cannot turn this situation and this play around.
BLG are up nearly 6,000 gold. However, they're not in position to contest this dragon outright. There's vision, at least keeping track of where Shun is.
Teleport from
Control
Bin.
Ward keeps eyes on the dragon. Bin TP's in, so does Knight. Good poke from Bin, or I should say Knight with the accelerated shock blast. Bin now in the pit, trying to force JunJia off. JunJia secures the dragon. What's the cost for it? Glacial Prison stuns one onto Viper, but JunJia will give his life for the cause as the rest of BLG hunt down the Boar Rider. And JDG now are forced to retreat to try and defend their base from crumbling from the siege.
Honestly, I feel like that's a good situation for JDG. Baron buff is off of BLG now, so they're not going to be able to force a play onto some of these turrets that are still standing on the side of JDG. They also deny the soul point, crucially, from Bilibili Gaming, and allow themselves to stall out this game and that win con just a little bit more. And really, it's just about time for JDG. You need more items on Yone. You need more items on Xiaoxu. You need to get these solo laners to a position where they can be more impactful in team fights. Getting that dragon provides that extra little buffer. It's just a matter of if JDG can make the most of it.
And it's so difficult to do with this massive gold deficit on their side, especially when it is so evenly split up. There's no one single target that you can just pop and instantly claw back that entire gold deficit. Shun and Bin are the biggest targets, though, because they have the biggest bounties on their heads. But Zhonya's Hourglass has been completed by Shun, even harder to lock down now.
And look at this man, forsaking his ego, not going for the Mage Ice. He's got 10 stacks on the Dark Seal, but he understands that the moment you go for the book, you upgrade the ring to a book, you lose all of your stacks. It's just the way the world works.
And I have to say, I want to go back to BLG's constant evolution being demonstrated here in the lower bracket. This is the closest we remember of a BLG that constantly tries to fight and skirmish and brute force their way, trying to use their mechanics to win these fights. But there's been a notable slowing down of the pace of the game. BLG understand the gravitas of being in the lower bracket to begin with, and despite this massive gold advantage, they have also been on the receiving ends of massive comebacks by JDG during the regular season of Split 1. They remember those pains all too familiarly, and the last thing they want to do after having this massive gold advantage is to chuck it right back over to JDG. So you can see the patience and the discipline being on full effect here again.
And here is yet another struggle against going face-to-face with one of these giant poke comps that BLG have drafted up, trying to get vision around this Baron, even just dropping a ward. You never know if a spear is going to find your back. You never know if a shock blast is going to get sent into your face. You never know if an enchanted crystal arrow is going to collide with you. JDG are treading on very thin ice here by walking up this close. BLG aren't even onto the Baron, and you can see just how difficult it is for JDG Gaming to get any modicum of vision around this top side.
And now, after putting a ton of vision down on this top side, do they feel confident in trying to start up this Baron? The Undertow grants brief vision here. On might be caught by the Glacial Prison, but the Mikhail's Crucible breaks him out of the CC chain. 3-man impale.
Big impale!
And sends it to the skies. Massive burst damage. Massive destruction. Absolute annihilation at the hands of BLG. JDG Gaming lose 3 and any chance of stealing this Baron away.
And this man has turned it on, Mark. 3-man impale sets up the BLG damage dealers to wreak havoc onto JDG Gaming. Baron acquired, and that might just be the straw that broke the camel's back. BLG nearly 10,000 gold up. Baron acquired onto 4 members, and turrets yet to be taken. This might just be the play that gets them to that next round of the lower bracket and continues the run that everyone says they'll go on.
And take a look back at the replay. On is the one that receives the engage, but in his dying breath, he finds a 3-man impale, and it sets everything up.
Vampire even flashes forward to get the encore, immediately gets snagged up, and then the hammer Q slammed down by Knight. The damage comes through. Viper is over the wall. JunJia tries to do something to salvage the play, but he can't do anything. BLG win out on the fight. They get the Baron. Dragon is up in about 10 seconds, and I don't even think all of the members need to commit themselves onto this objective. You can see that Bin is on the top side. You can see that Knight is joined up around there with him. They are looking to press their advantage on multiple different fronts.
And now JDG are just in a constant state of desperation. They can no longer wait for the safe play. They have to find quick picks on side lanes where BLG are not attentive, are not respectful of where JDG could be overloaded at a period in time. Constant spears, constant poke with Shun's Nidalee and Knight's Jace. The accelerated shock blasts have to constantly be scouted out for and be careful from the members of JDG to not get hit by. And my goodness, that damage. Okay. Impale goes wide.
Yep. It's just JDG now trying to weather the storm of the BLG siege power, but shock blasts keep getting thrown out. Spears keep getting tossed. You talked about this just now, Mark. It is so difficult for JDG to play these ones out. Bin is also in mid, so they have a 4-1 split coming through here. They want to try and break open the base with the Baron buff still active for another 30 seconds.
So incredible to see BLG, even though the WE upset was unexpected and shocked the world and sent them into the lower bracket early on.
Oh, Viper.
BLG doing everything they can.
Xiaoxu!
As Viper gets attacked by Xiaoxu, TPing into the backline once again. Knight tries to hold his own, and with Shun's help, he's able to slay Xiaoxu.
The
where
heal!
he stands. JunJia goes way too far. The Primal Surge. Shun's Nidalee has returned to Summoner's Rift with the vengeance, and he's ready to pounce on every last member of JDG Gaming.
Baron buff is now fallen for BLG, though. They've got a numbers advantage for about 30 seconds here. Knight is going forward.
HongQ forced to flash away from the skies. Knight puts a dent into the health bar of his mid lane counterpart. HongQ's gonna be forced to recall and try and replenish his entire health bar. BLG now ready to break open the base. Gala's attacked by Shun's Nidalee once again. It's a 4 versus 2 advantage for the next 15 seconds. This could be the victory march for BLG.
First seed versus second seed. It's not where we expected it to happen in the bracket, but BLG, that just makes them want to turn up the heat even more with elimination on the line. They will not fail. They will not falter. Open Nexus, Mark, is here.
Nexus turrets open. Shun stunned up at the Glacial Prison. Top esports dug their grave, and BLG will carve their tombstone. JDG are eliminated from playoffs, and BLG advance in the lower bracket.
BLG, their story will not come to an end. The first seed will continue to fight. And JDG, unfortunately, end of the line for them. The first time in 6 years that JunJia has unfortunately fallen this low in a playoffs. His streak is put to an end, Mark. And BLG, they've got a long, treacherous road ahead of them. They still have 2 more series to go before they can make it into that international contention. But it's a good look for them. This was the second seed, and I would say one of the bigger challenges that they will be facing here in this lower bracket. JDG were certainly no slouches. They showed up here today, but unfortunately BLG, they're just those guys.
Hearts broken for JDG. We didn't expect them to take an exit in playoffs this early on. They, alongside BLG, were our top 2 favorites to make that run in the upper bracket. Hell, we were expecting them to meet in uppers finals when we looked at the trajectory of both of their sides of the bracket. But top esports getting the better end of JDG in the upper semifinals, sending them into BLG's collision course, who, ever since being sent down by WE in the first round, have been on an absolute warpath. And unfortunately for JDG, they are just another casualty along the way.
For sure, as we get the updated bracket here, 4 teams remain in the playoffs, Mark. AL versus BLG going to be the next route in the BLG warpath. The Pandas are in their way next. And that is going to be a very exciting match. Playoffs are heating up, and I could not be more excited.
Anyone's Legend versus BLG in the lower semifinals. That is a rematch of the Split 2 grand finals from last year, Quax. Woo! Oh boy. Obviously, a lot has changed since then.
Quite a bit.
Tabe no longer on that roster as the coach, but BLG just dispatched him and the rest of JDG back to Split 3 waiting room. And with this continued evolution from BLG we are seeing, being tested constantly by the trials of fire, they are reforging themselves a new identity, showing that they are not just the team that relies on winning lane to win the game. They are demonstrating smarter macro decision making, more patience, more discipline. This is a BLG evolution that, like you said many times throughout this year's Quax, we have all wanted to see from them over the years of their dominance. And this 2026 iteration of them, with Shun returning to the lineup, Viper joining to help push the ceiling higher, and the new coaching staff for BLG it's taken its time, but it is starting to hit its stride, and we're seeing more and more peaks out of them. And I'm genuinely very excited to see this versatile BLG try and push themselves back into not only grand finals contention, but also returning to the global stage so that they have a chance to defend their golden road.
In this last game, we talk about the BLG macro, and there were shades of it in this game. Most specifically, I think BLG with the teleport swaps to minimize the amount of solo gold HongQ could get on a side lane was a nice touch. It really made the game difficult for Yone. I mean, we're seeing in the replays how heavily BLG focused on putting HongQ behind here in game number 3. But on top of that, Mark, I feel like it is much needed to see a macro-oriented BLG come through, because their next opponents are AL, who are one of the slower paced teams in Ascend and still remaining in the playoffs. They've got that killer instinct with players like Tarzan, but I think as far as the macro goes, AL are a very macro oriented team. So if BLG can match them on that front, they will come in and remain the heavy favorites going for that best of 5 as well. It is a much needed adaptation going forward, and I'm glad we got to see it in practice here against JDG.
Yeah. As a Shun fan, seeing this Nidalee performance in their match point was just awesome to see. And I am being inspired to see more Nidalee combinations that are not Nautilus Leona support to try and lock down targets for spears. We can add Skarner support to the roster.
We can. Capable of pulling out the Skarner, and personally my MVP for the game, Mark. I don't know about you. I think that Shun, like you said, had a lot of really flashy plays on his infamous Nidalee, but like, look at this. I mean, 3-man impale. This was the play that I think turned the game from bad to worse and practically unwinnable for the side of JDG Gaming. There was so much crucial setup done by the Skarner, and a bit of a redemption story, a mini one for On in his own right for this game, as it did not start out pretty for the Skarner's support. There were a couple of oopsie plays from him, but he turned it around in the mid game. His synergy with Shun and the ability to get plays done on the map, I think, is what really allowed BLG to take that extra step past the 15-minute mark and be such a strong team fighting team. It was because of the Skarner setup. It was because of On's positioning. Beautiful performance from him, not just in this game, but in this series. He hasn't won player of the game yet, but damn, he's going to do it right here. Much deserved.
Normally, I would love for a Nidalee to get player of the game, but you cannot deny, through the best and the worst times of On this Skarner, he persisted and got shiz done, baby. It didn't matter if he died doing it or if he whipped an impale. He got back up and he ensured that the